Hey everybody, Invisiblekatana here with my review for Transformers 1. As the title says, there will be spoilers in the second half of this video, but of course, I'll let you guys know when we get to that. Also, baked sushi, so it's a 420 review. Kicking things off, I saw this movie twice. Today was the second time I saw it. First time was like a family event, so there were some distractions. I missed the scene when I had to take my daughter to pee. And even when the little bit of distraction that there really was, I came out of the movie and I was like, that was really, really good. It was really good. But does it beat this? I don't know. And I was like, it's up there, the emotion, the characters. I was like, it was there. But like, does it beat it? Obviously there's a ton of nostalgia for this, especially for me. I did see G1, like as I grew up, I ended up getting it was like a full DVD set that one of my dad's friends had. So that's how I saw all of G1 Transformers. I'd seen the movie before I saw the show because my uncle had the VHS. And then years and years later is when I watched the original show. I'd watched Beast Wars, and that's what kind of really catapulted me into loving Transformers in general. And then watch all of G1, see the movie. It's an effing tragedy when you know the characters. I was like, this is almost depressing. I could understand kids like crying in theaters. It's like, it's not just Optimus. It's like everybody. It feels like they just kill everybody. It's insane. So I was like, when you know the characters, it's like, this is actually an insanely dark and almost psychotic thing to create for children when you know what happened with this show. And it's like, they were crazy, but I love the story. It is so dark when you really think about it. But it's a great story when like the actual serious nature of it makes it so much better. But it's like, it was not meant for that audience. When you really dive into like the characters that die and the changes that happen through the show, it's a serious, good story. Silly stuff, Dance and Dare to Be Stupid, but pretty great. And that's pretty much been the best movie. Even with all the live action, it's been the best one. And so I saw the movie, Transformers 1. First time I saw it, like I said, it's something. If it's not the best, the two-time purchase champion of the world, it just might still be up there. And then I saw it again today. And when there was like no distractions and I was just like in the movie, I was like, oh, the movie started. And I was like, I'm excited to see this as if I haven't seen it already. And that was like the first clue. I was like, why am I so excited? And then I went through an hour and 44-minute film, including credits. There's the mid-credit sequence as well as the post-credit sequence, so definitely check them out. If you have the moving seats, the movement starts back up in the post-credit sequence, which seems, it's cool, but I'm just like, wow, that's so crazy. It's a post-credit sequence, and then my chair's just like moving a little bit, like the very end. I was like, that's kind of funny. But mid-credit sequence, also post-credit sequence, hour, 44 minutes. Seeing it for the second time, this movie is an absolute masterpiece. It does beat the original. I love this film. It will always be number 2. I like Bumblebee. I enjoyed Rise of the Beasts, of course, as a huge Beast Wars fan. It would have been cool if they at least said somebody's effing name, like, hey, that's Rhinoc. You had them fighting, couldn't say somebody's name. So, a little disrespectful as my first Transformers. That bothered me. But overall, like that movie, like Bumblebee, I can tell you I'll be pre-ordering tickets when they announce this G.I. Joe Transformers crossover. That'll make up for never having seen the animated episodes from the G1 Transformers when they did the crossover. So getting into live action, I really hope is great. I'm looking forward to that movie. But I was looking forward to this way more than the last 2 live action movies. I haven't even seen anything before that. I only saw Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast after the 3rd Shia LaBeouf movie. After he left, I didn't watch any of them. I was like, oh, it just, visually, I was just like, it just looks worse and worse. Story-wise, and based off of every video I've watched, just how ridiculous they get with magic. And then it's like the 18 million continuities they have in those live action movies. We just came to Earth in the first movie. Then they've been here for hundreds of years. Bumblebee was fighting in World War II. Transformers were fighting with Merlin. Just crazy, ridiculous stuff. Like 18 continuities in those live action movies. So I was happy to just have the original G1 style go back to the beginning, to the point that they're calling this man Orion Pax, which is crazy to think. Finally, people know who Orion Pax is. I was looking forward to it. Saw the movie, liked it. Second time, I understand. Master, so good. All the emotions, the drama, the stakes of good versus evil friends, all the generic stuff, done well. That's all I wanted, and it's Transformers. I love Transformers. I love this movie. There's honestly not too much to say. I thought it was acted well. I wasn't bothered by any of the voices or anything. I know that was, some stuff I've seen from some reviews. For me, perfectly fine. Thought everybody did a great job. Could always use more sound wave, but that's just a biased opinion. Everything was really good. I thought the actors did well. I would have liked more action, I guess, just because, you know, it's Transformers, and I would like to see, you know, some cool Transformers action, which we got some great stuff in here with like half transformations and all that stuff. So definitely really good, but fantastic film. All in all, that's really all I need to say, because I just want to get into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, you should see it. Also see it, please see it multiple times, because apparently it's a flop. Like, it made like no money. That might be due to like the really crappy trailer, on top of the fact that anything animated has always seen like the kids version. So it probably was losing out because of that. And then that first trailer, even as a Transformers fan, was like, every review you see, people will be like, what was up with that first trailer? It was not a good idea. It made it seem super childish and kiddie. And then this is so mature. Like, it's really well done. Almost, you know, gory in some locations. But I was just like, man, as everyone has said, that trailer, horrible. Second trailer was great, but that first one, for sure, because it's Transformers, I even made a video talking about my thoughts on the trailer. I never do that, but I was like, for Transformers, when you go into Orion Pax and like D13, when you're going back that far, I'm like, I gotta talk about this. It's Transformers. So they're going to the core of stuff, and I had to talk about it. But that second trailer came out, and I was like, okay. And then it turns out, yeah, best Transformers movie. It's really good. Obviously, you know, people have different opinions, but there's no way this isn't in your top 3. Guaranteed. It should be top 2, and it should be number 1. But everybody's different. Go see the movie. See it multiple times to help save this. We need a trilogy. We need this to be like the movie equivalent of the Cybertron games. That's all we need. 1, 2, 3. Because I think they'll need 3 movies to actually pull it off. 3 set pieces, beginning, middle, end. Is just boom, poof, they're off to Earth. We don't ever need another movie in this continuity again, if they don't want to do it. But man, that's all we need. From this point, if we can get a trilogy, this could be the trilogy where at any point after that, if anyone's like, what's Transformers about? Boom, 1, 2, and 3. These 3 films, Transformers 1, whatever they would call, 2 and 3. As simple as that. Like how everybody's, raving about Spider-Verse, which tells an origin for a different character. This could be the origin that more people really get to experience. You're not going to go back to G1. You're not going to, go back to comics. You just 1, 2, 3. Here's 3 movies if you want to get into Transformers. It's a great first start. I really hope that it's just the beginning, but go see it multiple times, because we need the support for the movie to actually have it get a sequel. I never do that, but for Transformers, I'm going to do it. Do that for Transformers. It's really good. But getting into spoilers, if you haven't seen it, go see the movie. Full on spoilers from here on out. Absolutely amazing film. Just the little stuff off the top. I like them being friends. I like the story of that. I like the concept of Megatron being the more straight-laced character. Was like, hey, stay on protocol and everything. And that extreme loyalty is what turns him so evil. Like, he had the utmost respect and hope, and like his hero, who idolized his like greatest hero, is so interesting. Where it's like, oh, they both love Megatron. It's like both of these characters are like, oh man, like Megatron he is the coolest, he is the baddest. Like, that's why when I killed him, I took his cog, which that was the scene I actually missed when I first saw the movie, because I had to take my daughter to pee right after the battle with the High Guard and everything. So today was the first time I actually got to see like that, all that stuff play out. And I heard that in one of the reviews that was something Prime had said to, or Sentinel Prime had said to, I'm gonna just say Megatron throughout the movie, but when I actually saw that, the first time I saw the movie, it was like, oh, he took a purple cog out. I thought it was just like, oh, it's the color purple, because it's like he's gonna, it's Megatron taking it, their color, color for Decepticons is purple. I thought it was just a visual thing, and then he upgrades again. It was way more impactful knowing that it was actually Megatronus's cog, because that's what Sentinel Prime took it from him. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. That's way deeper than what I thought. I thought it was just like a cool color-based reference. Like, oh, like there's some purple accents. That's it. That's all I thought. And he just upgraded, which in my head when I first saw it, I didn't even think about the fact that he technically had a Prime's cog and then he took another Prime's, because I'm like, why would he change? But everybody's shape is different and stuff like that. So it's one of those funny things about Transformers. Like, you can get a different cog and it'll just make you even bigger, because that Transformer was just bigger. He was just a bigger Prime. So he just made the third version of Megatron, even though he already had someone else's cog. So it's super funny. Like, it does show like some cogs are more powerful than others, but I thought that was so interesting, and the impact of that was way bigger at the very end, when it's like, oh, he first off ripped this dude in half, basically had tendons snapping and sparks flying, and he reaches in and takes it out, and then he does like his full giant upgrade. But super cool at the end. I still loved it. I loved it even more the second time, having that better context there. But their relationship, Optimus and Megatron, from the beginning super cool. They're best friends. They're getting each other out of trouble, all that sort. Well, Megatron's getting Optimus out of trouble. Optimus is just like, hey, I want to do the best that I possibly can, but he's trying to break the rules, and Megatron is trying to do the best that he can by following the rules. And that dichotomy, as it kind of just transitions piece by piece to the like psychotic nature of this dude right here, very, very well done. All the little betrayals, I can't say little, in all honesty, I can't. So with everything they found out, it's definitely not little. Like, it literally was like, I'm quite literally taking a piece of your soul away so you can never transform before you're born. It's like, man, it gets darker when you get to like the depths, just like the classic. When you really do like the full-on adult brain connection to like even just real world stuff, it's like, ooh, that's effing dark. Like, that's insane. And they're just giving up all the Energon cubes, which I love that scene. I think they did it specifically when the Quintessons came, which that's another great thing. Just to have Quintessons is amazing. Every time I hear Quintessons, that's when I'm like, oh, we're actually being serious about this. That's how I always feel. It's like, if somebody says Quintesson somewhere, I'm like, they care, because that's like the bare minimum in my book. I'm like, if you say Quintessons, I know we're already establishing a lot of other things. So that, you know, that always makes me super happy. But when they took the Energon and they were like the giant cubes, I was like, I feel like that's specifically a reference to how Energon was in like the G1 show. Cause I'm like, they always have like the tiny little Energon cubes, which, you know, funny thing about Energon, just like Transformers, they're just like, it's just this, it's whatever size we say it is right now. That's Energon. But when they did the giant cubes, I was like, that feels like it's just a reference to G1 just having like the big Energon cubes that they used to have in that show. So I thought that was cool. And that's the only time we see like the giant cubes when they were all like formed together. So I thought that, I just liked that visual. I thought it was nice. But them going through that sequence, they learn the history of what happened to the original primes. They see that the matrix of leadership actually like dissipates, because obviously Sentinel isn't really worthy. He steals Megatronus' cog, which we don't know at the time, of course. And we go through the history of, you know, what happened, the Quintesson War, how they've all been betrayed, cog stolen, all that stuff, the descent into madness starting for Megatron. And then they go outside and of course they see the Quintessons, which I thought was cool. I of course would have loved to have seen some weird amalgamation of the actual just robot switching head thing. I would have loved it, but I understand they had to go a bit more organic, although the first face does kind of look like one of the faces. So I was like, that's super cool. And like the gross, almost like stretchy tendons, I was like, it's really gross. They went full bug with it. Like the ship is literally like a roach's head or something. So I was like, okay, I can definitely appreciate that. I thought that was super cool, at least for like the leader that came down at the time. He had the full tentacles. Everyone else kind of had the crab legs, but I was like, yeah, I can appreciate it. It's a very gross look. I love the sequence of the ship flying over before they even get to the cave. And it's like this weird horror sequence of just this looming, hovering sound effect. And it was like a straight up alien invasion sequence. And I was like, this is really cool. And just the laser just blasts a deer. And then it's just like scanning everything slowly. I was like, this is a really cool dark sequence. And then, you know, of course it leaves. It's just like a straight up alien invasion movie. So I love that sequence. And then of course the reveal, well, when I say reveal, it was actually the Quintessons coming down, but that wasn't the reveal, which is oddly enough leads me into something I wanted to talk about, because during that sequence, they play up this thing where like Sentinel Prime like kneels and they play like the big hum and then everybody gasps. And even when I first saw that, I was like, kind of like, that doesn't really make sense, right? And then the second time I was like, 100%, it makes no sense that they're gasping when he does the kneel. I was like, you just saw in like 4K IMAX 18-foot tall story versions of this dude chopping a Prime's head off. And then when they came outside and he kneeled, they were like, I'm like, you just saw like a 5-minute story with special effects going in your face. Like you thought you were about to get crushed during the playback. Like the gasp, I think it was when like Megatronus, or no, because he got his head chopped off. Somebody was shot. Like the last Prime they showed was shot. And he was falling towards them, and they literally do this, and then it's just a bunch of crumbles of rocks and stuff. I'm like, you just saw the story so hard, you thought you were about to die by it. And then he just stepped outside and kneeled, and then they're like, oh, what? Like, it makes no sense. Like, just continuity-wise, I was like, that really makes no sense when you think about them playing it up as this big moment. Like, they didn't, that wasn't, it was like, oh yeah, he kneeled down to him. Those are the new rulers. But I'm like, what else would this scene have possibly been? Without even the name of the Quintessons, it's like, well, what else would it have been? Like, you knew he was coming to kneel down. Lawrence Fishburne just told you. He's the new rulers. It seemed weird. I was like, why did they gasp? It makes no sense to me. But if I'm wrong, please let me know. But I just wanted to point that out. It was like the one thing that I noticed, especially on my second viewing, where I was like, that does not work. That doesn't make any sense why they would gasp after everything they just saw. Even if you don't kind of believe it, I'm like, you know it's real. Like the whole reason you're out here is because you know everything is real. And then it was like a double gasp moment. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense to me. But after that, everything was cool. Of course, we go through, we have a cool fight sequence where Alphatron, for some reason, goes like Beast Wars mode, which I was totally fine with. He gets a tail, he gets like a crazy lightning, like a pink lightning horn. It rips through a couple of them, and then Arachnid comes down, and just like she is in every version, she's a crazy spider villain. She never change. But then we have our first transforming sequence, and this is where they did something, one of my favorite moments in the movie. And even when I first saw it, I was like, huh, that's a good moment. But they breeze by it, but that moment is really good. And it's when they're first transforming. And then everybody's celebrating and stuff. And then one of the drones is about to shoot, I think, Optimus in the back or whatever. And Megatron comes in his tank mode, and he just blasts him away. He gets up and he does his laugh. And the first time, I think I kind of missed the laugh. And I was just like, oh man, he's super happy. He's like, yeah, I'm great, dude. And I'm like, he murdered this guy, right? But the second time I saw it, he laughs. And he does like the villain laugh where he's like, oh snap. Like he's laughing like, I got you. And it was like, oh, he's gone. It's over. And then like right after that was when he takes a thing from Optimus, and he's like, I got it. And he says it like super duper slow and angry. I was like, okay, here we go. So then of course we get the rest of the Decepticons. I'm just gonna call them that. I know they're the High Guard in the film, whose name is Wave, all that good stuff. Soundwave, of course, my favorite. Classic answer. Soundwave, my favorite. Grimlock is my favorite Autobot, for anyone who might be curious. So that's the ranking. Soundwave, Grimlock, and then it's always really hard between these two, because sometimes I just really love Megatron's design, but I'm like, do I like the character more? It's like I kind of do, because he's so evil, and this movie's a great example. And that's one of those things where I'm like, it should just be, Optimus. He's the good guy. But it's like Megatron's one of my favorite villains in like all of comics. So I don't know. It's hard to say. But Soundwave, Grimlock, I can give you that one, number 1 and number 2. So we get the fight. I thought it was cool. His rage is so insane. He just forms a giant cannon. Love the single cannon. I will admit, I wish they stuck with the single cannon or just made it bigger. Maybe it looked sillier when it was even larger. But I was like, dang, I hate that the final transition was him getting like the triple cannon. I was like, dang, I like the single cannon look. I always thought it looked really cool, just as a part of the design. It was also, when it's simplified, it almost streamlines the entire design. And I thought the designs throughout the movie were actually really well done. As far as them, well, at least for Optimus and Megatron, they each get 3 variations. So like Orion and D13, then they're like upgraded versions when they can transform, and then they're prime versions as well, which, unless I'm mistaken, and I'm sure it's out there, it's definitely new for my life, I don't think there's ever been a version of Megatron where technically he's part prime, like in this sense. And like I said, I could easily be wrong. I can tell you now, I've never read the comics. I kind of want to get into the new stuff, just as like a good starting point, because it's a new story. So I would love that, just to be into a Transformers comic. But I've never read any of the comics. I've just seen the shows that I've seen, which probably still isn't even half of them, considering how many Transformers cartoons actually exist. But I don't think there's ever been a moment where it's like, oh, it's Optimus Prime versus an evil Prime, because that's exactly what Megatron is. And I love the fact that that's how they do it, because normally the main thing is like, oh, Megatron was built as just like a new powerful Transformer, and that's why he's just naturally powerful. He's, a warrior. So that was like his whole thing. So even as a Prime, you kind of balance out to like just an insane. It's kind of like Jiren. It's like Jiren's just like here already, and then Goku has to go like way up here, and then somehow it's still exactly the same. That's what it's like. So that's how I always saw it. And then having it in this form where they're both primes, like almost 100%, like they are both primes because they have the power of a prime. I thought that was so cool. Like it's just another extra layer of attachment, which, like I said, probably existed somewhere. I just hadn't seen it personally. And I was like, I love that change, because it's not just them as friends. When they have that split between, hero and villain, they legit are on the exact same level as characters who have the powers of primes. Very powerful ones too, because their whole thing was like, oh, Megatron was the most powerful prime. So it just makes Megatron super duper strong as the most powerful prime, and then Optimus as with his own strength as a new prime. And it's like, that's super cool. I like that idea of they are both technically primes, just two sides of that coin, good and evil. And I also, and this is something I gathered from the second time I saw the movie, from the little stuff I missed, like them being captured, was kind of where things stopped. After I saw the fight and stuff, they got captured, had to take my daughter to pee. So I missed like the whole captured sequence, and I came back right after Megatron was branded. And that actually made me miss out on a sequence that was super important. It's not the craziest thing ever, but it would have added an extra layer of impact to genuinely my favorite sequence in the movie, which is the very ending when Megatron goes full evil. And something they do in the movie, and I definitely didn't notice this the first time, but his eyes change color throughout the movie. It wasn't just like from yellow to red. I didn't realize he has a point when he like gets really angry, and I think it's even before the cannon forms. I think it was like after he killed the dude, and when he like first got like his super angry bit, when he was like, I got it. I think that was when they did like the tint change, and it went from yellow to orange. And then when they do the orange to red, it's not straight from yellow to red like you think. It changes in there. So I thought that was super cool when I actually noticed that. But the full red eyes, and then he drops him like, I'm tired of saving you. And then he's got like the laser eyes like Wesker from Resident Evil, if you get that reference. But he's ducking through them, and he's taking on all these spots to get to Sentinel Prime. And then Optimus, or Orion at the time, was becoming Optimus, and they have like the music swell, which I later found out is music from Transformers Prime. So that's insane. But I thought the music was great. Anyway, I just forgot that I already knew that song. So he's becoming Optimus, and they're doing like the classic thing with the Spirit Primes and Primus and all that stuff. And then Megatron is on like the super evil side, and he picks him up. He picks up, almost said Alpha Trion again. He picks up Sentinel Prime and literally just rips him, tendon snapping, sparks flying, and he rips him open. And when he takes his cog out, I just thought it was purple. When I first thought, I was like, oh yeah, it's purple. Like it's Megatron Decepticon symbol. It's just like a cool color reference. He took the purple cog, and then the Decepticon thing was purple. Like it just fit. Made no connection to the fact that they even show it early on with Megatron as his sticker. Like his thing was like, his color was that he was a giant purple character. So when I saw it today, and I'd heard this from a review that I watched it when they mentioned that, I was like, oh, I didn't realize Sentinel Prime, like they reference it where it was like, oh, he says like, oh, Megatronus is like the coolest one of all. And then they have an actual conversation about that in the movie. I missed that conversation that adds, for me personally, because I'm a giant Transformers nerd, a huge moment of impact, because when he killed Sentinel Prime, he took Megatronus's cog and becomes Megatron. And it's like, that's a huge deal. On top of the fact that when you really think about it, the last two people that had his cog, who were both like, I'm gonna like do whatever. Well, one guy was straight up like, yeah, I want to be evil, but Megatron is Megatron. He was like, I want to do good, but he wants to do it in the most evil way. And then he just goes full evil. Like, if you want this to stay the same, you want to keep being lied to, then I'm gonna have to take you down so there are no more lies. But it was crazy because Sentinel Prime also really loved Megatronus. It's like, these two guys are like almost the same, and then they become the same. It's still just another villain taking on Megatronus's cog, but he takes on the full, the full name and everything. And I was just like, wow, that impact of both those characters idolize the same person. Like, you guys are the same dude, and Megatron kind of does become the same guy. Like, he says it's to liberate, which of course, his thing was definitely different than control. But at the same time, when you want to kill everybody, destroy the whole effing city, you instantly prove like, nah, I want to do it my way. That is control again. And I love the way they handled that. I thought it was really good, and it made my favorite scene even better, having that connection. Like, oh, he didn't just take the cog out of his enemy. Because even when he first did it, I was like, he didn't need to do that. I thought, like I said, just the purple reference. But I was like, he did not need to take his cog out. And I thought it was just like extra disrespectful on like some psychotic villain type stuff where he was like, I'm gonna take your soul out and keep it on me forever. Like, that's all I thought he was doing. I thought it was like, wow, this is like a gross trophy, man. And then it was, a different level of impact. Still insanely crazy to have that connection between the movie villain and then the future villain, I guess, however you want to put it. But love that sequence. Favorite moment of the movie for sure. Just the full dark turn, because Megatron's one of my favorite villains, and it was done so well in this. I've seen reviews where people thought it was super quick. I actually thought it was perfectly paced. Like, of course it does take place over the course of a day, but it's just one of those moments where it's like, you kind of have to have that suspension of disbelief that it's, his world literally shattering, and one character wants to do it in a happier way, as far as, like imprison him, versus I want this dude to suffer, like strip him naked and walking through the streets type stuff. He wanted him to suffer in darkness and then die. So it was like kind of different ways to do it. Slightly different ways. But when it all comes down to the end, still two villains, and they both love the same, original Prime. So I thought that was a cool added connection to like just the story between these two. They both have the power of primes, and then Megatron actually uses Megatronus's name like on his own. Like, if it was ever done before, then it would have been Prime, or other bots that made Megatron to be like, oh, we'll call him Megatron because he's as powerful as Megatronus used to be, and that's what will make him a warrior. I don't remember if that's why they called him Megatron, but he chose the name himself this time. and was like, I'm going to take it and make it my own. And it was super dark and super good. I thought it was great. Would love to see some more action. I would love to see him go back to this canon instead of like the triple canon. Like, I know he's just a transformer. It got cut off. He can just magically make some new stuff. So we'll see what happens. Also, have to point this out because I think it's something they did in this movie that, for one, would probably be harder to do with the live action. It would just take more time and money. But I love the half transformations in this. When they would do stuff where it's like, oh, Alita 1 would use like one wheel to like spin super fast and kick. One of the pseudo gruesome scenes when they actually have the attack on the high guard, and Optimus just grabs a dude and then he transformed and just squeezes and ripped this dude in half midair. And I was like, that was mature. I feel like, I think that guy was screaming in agony as you squoze him to death. Pretty intense. And then at the end, when Optimus is fighting Megatron, there's a great sequence when Optimus rips off the tank cannon. Super glad they went with the tank. He rolls. That's his thing. Megatron is like the tank. I don't. If you can't make him a gun, which you just can, it looks weird. Just make him the tank. I don't like when they try to do the jet. You can do a triple changer. I'll gladly accept a triple changer Megatron, but just tank. Everybody knows if he ain't a giant Luger, you just make him a tank. That just fits. It just works. That's his thing. Just make him a tank. I was happy they did that. But when Optimus ripped off the cannon, he hit Megatron with it. And Megatron, he hit him once and then he tried to do it again. And Megatron ducked down. And Optimus hits him on the back with the cannon. And then Megatron like morphs the cannon back onto himself. Like he reconnects with his own body. And then he flips it and switches it around his back. And I was like, I don't think I've ever seen that in Transformers, where they use kind of the more organic nature of it, where it's like it's a part of your body, even if it's a mechanical system. You have control over that in a way that humans couldn't. Like you can't just take a piece off and pop that bad boy back on. But that's what he did when he transformed back into his robot mode, and he just ducks and he just takes the cannon and it just sticks right to him and he whips it around and just morphs it again. And all of that, I was like, we need more of that. As far as like Transformers action, that's a really great way to do that. And they do it a lot in this movie, where when Optimus first transforms and like he loses his head, when they have that fight at the end of the movie, Megatron goes to punch him or like swipe at some point, and he uses that trick to just dodge a kick or whatever the attack was. He just drops his head down and the attack misses. And then they have moments like with RC doing that, like I said, the spot where he twists the dude in half. But the Megatron scene was my favorite one, because I was like, well, that's actually ripping a piece off and putting it back on. It wasn't even just like an interesting transformation that they did. That was something I don't think I've ever seen in Transformers, where they take a piece off and then put it back on, and then you kind of just morph it however you want to. But I thought that was a great little piece, and I was like, that's super cool. And then they changed how the axe works, which I never thought of. But they're like, what if we make it where he can just throw energy axes, like Optimus throwing energy axes? I was like, that is actually a really genius idea. And you could, there's a lot of things you could do with that. I don't think they would get into the weeds on with Transformers, but I'm like, you could tie that into like an energon consumption move, where it's like, you know, it's like a special attack or whatever. Like just holding it doesn't do anything, but when he releases the energy, you know, it's a whole thing. They could do that. That's some video game stuff I was thinking. I was like, oh, you could tie it to energy point, you know, video game stuff. But thought that was super cool. Never seen them do that before. He can launch the axe, and I was like, that's pretty sick. I don't know if they'll bother doing it, but I would love to see Megatron get like the purple mace and mace on a chain. I don't know if they'll ever do that, but that would be a great sequel edition to just be like, okay, here's your axe, here's your, you know, your ball and chain, sir. I would love to see that if they do it in the second movie. I don't know what they would do color scheme wise, if they would make it full on purple, because they didn't. It's kind of like yellowish blue, sometimes it's orange, you know, just however you want to do it. But for Megatron, it's like, it's just straight up purple, like maybe like a bright purple, sometimes like a purple pink, if you want to do it that way. But I'm like, it's always been kind of like one solid color. But so is, you know, so was the axe technically, but it would still, you know, obviously it would have to be different. They wouldn't make it, you know, obviously the yellow and blue highlights. So I'm curious what they would do, and I hope we get to see it. I hope we get a sequel. If enough people see this, we could make it happen for sure. But I would love to see the chain and mace come in, because I think they do combat really well. I think they could just do like a great choreographed sequence. I would love to see that. Like there's some stuff in here I'm like, if they have the time and money, they can do some insanely great Transformers fights, and I would love to see that. Because just a little bit we got, I was like, this is cool. We got like 2 action sequences, and you know, the ending was like, you know, the big thing. But when it came to just like hand-to-hand combat type of stuff, it was few and far between. It was a lot of shooting and blasting in the air more than like the hand-to-hand stuff. And I would love to see some more of that because I thought they did a great job here. So overall, fantastic film. Enough to see it twice. I already knew I was gonna love it, but I was like, this is great. The ending sequence where everyone's branded, with the Decepticon symbol, sorry. And then of course, they're all screaming, rise up, because that's what Sentinel Prime said to Megatron, like, oh, hey, D13, like, rise up, Great sequence. Great movie. Loved it the whole way through. Also, the first time I saw it, I did have my my Prime shirt on, which I don't remember what his says. Unfortunately, I can't remember what my Prime shirt says, but I have one. It's just this. It's with Optimus on it. You could probably look them up because I know there's one of Soundwave as well. I just happened to get this from a different site, so I only saw the two. But they're out there. You can get a couple faces and stuff. I would love to see a sequel with this movie. I don't... They'd probably add characters in, but at the same time, they technically have so many Transformers characters in here, they wouldn't be adding them. They would probably just be boosting up their importance, because I'm like, everybody is in here. Like, obviously there's some characters not there, but I'm like, they got so many characters. You could just do the next movie and just make them more important. Like, you got Jazz, like Jazz was the first one referenced. I was like, okay, they're like straight up naming characters and stuff, and they're all in there. So I thought that was super cool. I was like, all right, the sequel, we can have more of the characters expanded, like 110% more Soundwave. I'm all for that. I don't know if they would do it in the sequel, but man, I would love a true Grimlock. That would be so good. I would love to see it. Like, Grimlock transforming would be sick, and just spitting fire. Like, we really need that. Also, I love what they did with the jets. He used the like his exhaust vents to fly, and he used them as like an insane flamethrower. Just those little things where I'm like, stuff we don't really see too often when it comes to Transformers, just doing little things like that. And I'm like, okay, we can get some great action, and we already have great story. So I know that they could do it a second time and continue the war, and it would really be like the war segment, or like the start of the war, and then Fall of Cybertron type stuff. So I feel like it almost inevitably has to go into a war sequence where, because I mean, it's literally war. That's what happens. That's how they leave Cybertron, is through the war that ravages the entire planet. So we got, everything's nice and great. The second war maybe ravishes a couple of cities, and then I don't know, you do like a big time skip, and it's like, it's just desolate. And that's an interesting thing, because the movie is very light, but at least the way it's normally represented is very dark. Whenever you see actual Cybertron, it's it's just abandoned. That's how it looks. Like, it's dirty sometimes is how it looks. Everything's dark. The life is gone again. So I'm curious how that would move forward, artistically speaking, but I hope we can move forward. Whatever it is, I'm excited for it. So we shall see what happens ultimately. But I love this movie. It's my #1 Transformers film. I can't wait for this junk to come out on Blu-ray, because I'm definitely going to watch it again. It was really good. If you're this far, you either like it or I spoiled everything, and it's still going to be worth seeing. I promise you. There's so much stuff I left out. Like, the jokes are good. I will say this. I almost forgot. As a person who loves references, this was a fantastic reference. When Bumblebee got introduced and he was going through the fake robots, the second one he said was Tron. For anyone who does not know, the character is played by Keegan-Michael Key. He was a part of the sketch comedy duo Key and Peele. You might know the other as Jordan Peele. They have a sketch where they go through it's like their most famous thing that they have, I would say, as far as like just viral clips. It's the teacher who says people's name wrong, and the dude's name is Aaron, which starts with 2 A's, and the guy's going around like, hey Aaron, where are you? And he's getting mad. And he's mad every time someone corrects him. He says like Balake for Blake and stuff like that. If you haven't seen this skit, it's hilarious, and it's like I said, their most popular one. They did a couple. That show is fantastic. I would highly recommend that. I feel like it doesn't get as much respect as it deserves, because I would honestly put that like #2, maybe like right under Chappelle Show. I would go Key and Peele 100%. There's not like 100 million comics or anything like that, but as far as just anything on Comedy Central, even including South Park, but I'm not like the biggest South Park guy ever, Key and Peele. But if you're going to sketch comedy, 100%, that show is hilarious. So I highly recommend looking into that in general. But that reference was so interesting to me. I was like, wow, they actually made an Aaron reference in Transformers. I love that. So I had to reference that, because I make a bunch of pointless references all the time, and I love that. I was like, that's really good. Tron. I respect that. Hope we get a sequel. Would love to know what you guys think about all things Transformers, but of course, Transformers 1. Also, I'm sure at some point there's probably a question in there for anyone, like the 2 people that might have actually made it this far. These are from 3.0. These are based off of the Transformers Siege series, which I did a review on for all 3 seasons. So check that out if you're interested. Or I've done reviews on the movie as well, twice, in fact, for I think what's this one, 30th? So I did a review for this one, and then I did another one for the 35th, because I saw it in theaters for the 35th. But yeah, you can check out my reviews for all things Transformers. Also, I reviewed the entire series of Beast Wars because that was my first Transformers thing. So please check that one out. That's a really old video that I did, but that show really stood up. Like, I hadn't seen that show since I was a kid, and I waited until I was in college to watch it again. And I was like, no, this holds up. This is really good. Obviously, visually, you can say what you want, but story-wise, that show is really effing good. Especially if you know like G1 lore and how they kind of follow behind that, which is all by mistake, mind you. I looked into some of the extra special features. They had the people that wrote Beast Wars had nothing to do with Transformers. They didn't even know about Transformers G1 that much. And so when they were writing Beast Wars, the big thing where it was like, oh yeah, like they talk about the Great War. They just threw that in there like, oh, we don't know these dudes. So what if we just says like, you know, a great mystical past war? When I rewatched it, I didn't have that knowledge. So as soon as they were like the Great War, I was like, oh, they're talking about like G1 Transformers, like the war for Cybertron. That's super cool. That is not what that meant. They were just like, Great War, just throw that shit in. That's what every old thing has. That's it. It was just by mistake that they said the right thing and then kind of went down that path of connecting to G1. And they did a beautiful job, if I do say so myself. But I love Beast Wars, so check out those reviews if you like any or all the other Transformers things I've done. I played Transformers Devastation, pretty sure that's on the channel, super old once again, so apologies for the lack of quality there. But you can see all my love for Transformers throughout, you know, the years. But I would love to know what you guys thought about this movie, what you guys think we're gonna do going forward. I would assume the next movie, if they actually end up doing it, I hope they do, would be the G.I. Joe Transformers live action crossover. So I think we'll have, you know, we got this. I think we'll go back to live action because they mentioned that a while ago. And then whatever the next movie, Transformers 1.2 is going to be called, that will probably end up being after the crossover film. And we'll see if that ends up bringing, you know, G.I. Joe back and all that good stuff. That second movie was actually pretty good. I know the first one was kind of trash, but that second movie, it was pretty cool. They have ninjas fighting on the mountain. They do some ridiculous dumb stuff. And I was like, this is not that bad. Not the greatest Cobra Commander. Kind of hated that part. But the second movie, they figured some stuff out where it's like, yeah, do this for G.I. Joe. And Snake Eyes was good, except they killed the story. And the cinematography for that was really horrible considering the action was so good. And they were doing like shaky cam and getting on people. Like you could see like people's toes. I'm like, I want to see who that toe is kicking in the face. So horrible filming of some great action. You could just tell the choreography was good. And just recording those fights, I don't know why they did it that way. It was unfortunate. But I liked the movie overall, but then I kind of hated the ending where it's like, you made Snake Eyes feel like the a-hole. It was like, that's not the point. So that's probably not going anywhere, but it was good. It was mostly good. And then the ending, I would have been like, I can get over it. And then it was literally like a 180 on the story. It's like, well, I'm sympathizing with the other dude. Like, I'm sorry, but Snake Eyes and all of you other people, you kind of suck in this one. Sorry. He's right. Like, you know, he's out of line, but he's right. So we'll see where that one goes. I don't know if that'll actually end up connecting at all to the G.I. Joe Transformers crossover, but whatever we get next, I hope it's really good. This is a great moment for Transformers fans. We got the comic out, Void Rivals. So read that. I'm saying that, but then I'm telling you, I'm not gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till like a volume or omnibus comes out because that's how I read comics. I just found out Deadly Class officially ended like 3 years ago. I didn't know that. I thought it was still going on. So I might pick up that whole compendium, although it seemed kind of small for that long break. So I was like, I might need to Google what people thought about the ending just a little bit because I was like, slightly concerned here. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with that one. Either way, thanks for checking this video out. Of course, if you guys have any comments, please put them down in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.
You hungry? I'm hungry. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry. Like I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Like I'm Shaggy. Man, I'm hungry. Man, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Yeah, man. You hungry? Yeah, I'm hungry.